Hello again. I'm Dr. Christina Flores, a coach with Complete College America, here to discuss with you the student success metrics and associated workbook as part of the readiness assessment that our learning community will be working on to add co-requisite support for math and/or English students. We hope that this video answers some questions, and while it is a remote video, asynchronous, please know that we are all here available by phone, email, or to jump on a quick call or meeting to answer any questions that you may have about Part 4 of the Readiness Assessment and the associated workbook. We hope that you can bring in a member of your institutional research team to help you with this section and be able to get this data in the next 5 or 6 weeks so that we can work together on the plan and a white paper making the case for co-requisite implementation at your institution. I'm going to share with you some of the metrics that we know from research are associated with large-scale reform efforts such as these that help folks across the gamut understand the need for innovation and change in our colleges. And also, as the project continues, help us monitor the progress that we're making to serve those students that we aim to serve well. So I'm going to go ahead and share part 4 in the workbook, and then also show you the in the readiness assessment, apologies, and then also show you the associated workbook. So hopefully you are seeing part 4 of the readiness assessment, the student success metrics. Once again, the data that you're collecting for this project will be kept private to you and your coach. The data for this project will not be shared with Complete College America, Strong Start to Finish, UNCF, or any other project members. It is solely to help you make the case for innovation and change, and also to monitor your progress as you start to redesign the student experience at your institution. We also recognize that our colleges are operating in different contexts. And so some of these data points may be difficult or impossible to collect, and that's okay. Please reach out to your coach and we will customize the workbook as needed to ensure that we all have the data that we need to plan for the future and monitor our success. We also suggest that you look for data that is certified for students that have completed at least one academic year at your institution. What this means that you'll most likely be looking at the previous fall incoming cohort to answer the student success metric workbook. And it may be that this cohort of incoming students is very small and you want to do more than 1 year, and that is absolutely up to you, your team, and your coach. It may also make sense for you as time goes on to separate any cohort data that you have. If, for example, you have rolling admissions and you want to look at different entering cohorts to see how the work that you're doing to improve student success varies by incoming cohort. We also are operating across different states, and so we have opted to use definitions defined by IPEDS in the student success metrics and associated workbook. We recognize that some of the disaggregates may or may not be collected by your college, and that's okay. Please use your best judgment in selecting the types of disaggregates that you use. We also note that we are following the guidelines that IPED has posted in response to executive orders from the federal government that regulate what data they can ask and collect. You may have more nuanced data that you want to include. And again, that is up to you and your team and your coach. We encourage you to use the data that best represents the students you are trying to serve. We also know that some of the disaggregates may end up having really small cohorts or small cell sizes. And while we want to be able to ensure that we are reaching the students and the target populations you identify, we also understand that privacy of these students is of the utmost importance. And so please work with your IR team to determine what suppression values you may want to use and how you want to protect your students' identities and data for the purpose of this project. We will not be sharing this data with anybody, and we encourage you to have an agreed upon data sharing plan with your coach. Whether that is that the data workbook is stored locally by you and your team and only accessed by your coach when needed, or whatever agreement meets the safety standards and privacy standards for your students. We are also using terms that are in the field regarding co-requisite implementation, terms like college ready or not college ready, entry-level math, entry-level English. And these terms may or may not make sense for you at your institution. And so in the case that any of these terms do not make sense or are not how you describe your institutional actions, please work with your coach and we can customize the workbook to ensure that we're getting the data we need to make a strong case and measure our success. So there are 3 key questions that you are going to be encouraged to collect data about. The first key question is, what is the composition of our new entering student population? So we want to know who's coming in, who are we trying to serve, and how is the experience of these students going? Why is it important for us to understand these students when we're trying to redesign or refine their experience during their first year in college? And so you'll notice here that there are data items that are asking you to understand who's coming in college ready for math or not college ready for math. If this is a term that you use, and some of you may not, college ready for English and not college ready for English. And again, ready for both of those subjects or not ready for both of those subjects. And if college readiness is not a standard by which you measure your incoming students, we'd encourage you to consider what is the standard by which you would be placing students into some kind of co-requisite support. And if there is a standard that would designate a student as eligible for that type of support or not eligible for that type of support, that you use that designation in lieu of the college ready designation in this section. So once again, you understand the students that are coming in that you're trying to serve with this compared to the students that may not need, or by your standards, may not need support for their math and English courses. Key question 2 asks you to understand what types of courses in math and English are currently happening and being taken by your incoming entering students. And so we know that most colleges that do serve students that don't meet college readiness standards often have prerequisite sequenced courses leading up to entry-level math or English. Some of you have already actually started co-requisite courses in this space as well, and may have data to report about students enrolled in co-requisite courses. And that again is a course that is paired directly with an entry-level course that allows that student to get support while they're working on their college level credit. And you may have students, again, who are going directly into math or English. And so we want to understand how many and what type of students are going into those courses. Key question 3 is asking us, how do our new entering students perform in math and or English during their first year? Now, we know that some colleges may have policies in place that require students to get their math and English courses out of the way in their first year, and some may not. But we're going to focus on this first year so that we can have a generally standard idea of the change that we're trying to make in that student experience, so that we can increase the likelihood of student success in their core math and English courses. So we're asking you to think again about that designation of college ready or not college ready, or designated for co-requisite support or not needing co-requisite support, and think about some key ideas. How many students are getting into these courses and becoming college ready, or at least successfully completing their developmental content? How many of those students then go on and actually enroll in the entry-level credit-bearing course? And how many of those students in the first year end up getting that credit? We're asking you to think about this for several different populations as well, for students who may start in prerequisite courses, if you already have co-requisite courses, students that are starting there, and students, once again, who are coming in already prepared for these courses. And the goal is so that we can make a case for the type of change we want to make and also understand where we can have room for improvement in student success. While we're thinking about this as well, we want to understand that success may be defined differently by each institution. For example, some institutions may accept a grade of D or satisfactory or pass for a student to have a credit that applies to their program for graduation. Other colleges may require stricter guidelines, such as a C or a letter grade. So we encourage you to think about the type of credit that you require for a student to actually have completed that credit for their program to be eligible for a degree or a certificate or a completion along the lines of your institution. And as you're thinking about this measure of success, be sure to define that and also let your coach know so that we understand collectively what kind of data we're looking at. We will not be comparing institution to institution. So if if your definitions vary, that's fine. It's to be expected. And the type of data you can have access to is going to vary as well. And we are not going to be doing any kinds of comparisons between institutions. So once again, this is completely customizable to you and your institution. So all of these items are also in a workbook for you as an option, and we hope that this makes collecting the data a little bit easier. So I'm going to share that workbook with you right now that aligns with part 4 that we've already discussed. So on the first page of the Excel workbook is just some high-level information. The same information is in the readiness assessment document that you will have, including your project contents. So your institutional leads and your Complete College America coaches. We've also included a link to the IPEDS definitions for some of the student subgroups. But once again, we encourage you to use the types of subgroups and disaggregates that best describe the target populations you're working with at your college. We do ask on this page, on this tab, that you include your institution name, the person that we are going to be able to ask any questions to in IR, and their contact email. So this member of your institutional team that supports that information will be included on this page. You'll notice that there are 2 tabs. So if you are going to be working on a project for math students, you would complete the data on the math tab. If you're going to be working on a project for English students, you will complete the data on the English tab. If you are going to be working with both subjects, you will complete both tabs. When you look at the data workbook, you'll notice that in column A, there is an opportunity for you to write the term. So this is, say, the fall 2024 cohort. So whichever cohort you've decided to measure. If you do more than one cohort, we encourage you to separate those and include each one of those terms here. You'll notice also that we have used categories designated by IPEDS for student subgroups. And some of these categories at your institution may be very small. So we encourage you, again, to think about the suppression values that make sense for your data privacy and security, and combine any groups that you may need to combine so that you have some data to work with your team to think about these subgroups. We have selected the racial and ethnic categories collected by IPEDS, as well as the binary sex in response to the executive order from the federal government. If you want to include more items or more designations here, please feel free to do so. We've also suggested some age categories here as well. And depending on the types of students that enter into your college, these may or may not make sense for you. So we encourage you again to think about who's coming into your institution and combine groups if necessary, or split them out even in different ways if age is one of your target populations. We've included Pell recipients as a proxy for socioeconomic status. You may or may not use this proxy. You may have a different one altogether. But when we're thinking about, again, the types of students that we're aiming to serve better, this is one way that we can discuss socioeconomic status. You'll then notice across the top the 3 key questions. Key question 1 covers the composition of your new entering student population. Key question 2 measures the type of math courses taken by those new entering students. And key question 3 is the performance of those entering students in year 1. In row 2, you have that designation for college ready or not college ready. Once again, if this is not a designation you use, think about the standards that you may plan to apply when you select a student for co-requisite support or not co-requisite support, or I should say as needing co-requisite support or not needing that, and use that indicator here. Then you're going to answer each of those items here with a count. So account for your fall new entering student enrollment. And of course, we selected fall as kind of the standard data collection for student success efforts. If you have rolling admissions or want to do more than one cohort of entering students, you can, of course, use column A to indicate that. And then, of course, you don't need to use the fall indicator here in row 3. But you're going to be thinking about who's coming in total, who's being designated ready for math and not ready for math, who's designated ready for both of those subjects or neither of those subjects. Then who's going right into entry-level math? of your entering students. Are they taking it right away or are they waiting if they're not taking it right away in their first year? And again, who's going into prereq or who's going into co-req math if you already have started co-req support for math. Then we're going to think about how they're doing. For those students that went straight into math, did they complete their credit in year one? For the rest of those students who were designated not ready or needing support, co-requisite support, of the prereq students who finished their DevEd requirements, who then enrolled in an entry-level course and got credit for that course. And for co-req students, if you already have that in place, who completed their DevEd requirement, who enrolled in their entry-level math, and who earned credit. You'll notice that the English tab is analogous. It's exactly the same, except you're thinking about your English taking population there as well. You'll also note that this is a count. And so we will also want to look at proportions or percentages, which you or your IR team can do either on the same tab or create a pivot table or some other way to look at the proportions as well in the workbook. So we've created this to hopefully simplify the data collection process and allow a tool that both you, your institutional team members, and your coach can use when you're thinking about making the case for refining or innovating in the space of entry-level English and math. And as we continue to work together, where we can see if we're making progress for different student populations. So we hope that this overview was helpful. And while it is asynchronous, please know that we are available to you anytime to meet with you or your team or your IR director to answer any more specific questions you may have regarding the student success metrics component of the readiness assessment. So thank you again for your willingness to work with us on this project. And we are excited to see the innovation that comes out of this learning community and the impact that it's going to have on your students as we redesign their experience. So take care and reach out if you need any help.